welcome back to another exciting adventure on Riding Through the Unknown. Ooh, almost got tongue-tied there. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight I'm joined by a guest who was a previous guest, and so I am so blessed and honored to have her back on. And I am going to hand it over to my guest to let her introduce herself how she wants to, since we already did the full intro on the previous episode. So I'm going to turn it over to the one, the only, super amazing, informative Geraldine Orozco.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to be here. My name is Geraldine Orozco, and I'm an epigenetic psychotherapist. I'm an intuitive and a life force cultivation master. And I try to teach everything to do with the multidimensional nature of our reality. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and talk about, deep dive into whatever we want to get into today.
You know, and your background is so unique that it's like, how do you even begin to be at the levels you're at on those? Because they seem like in-depth, long research into each one, but yet you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. It's like, how do you find the time?
To be honest with you, how I got into this information is actually my connection to the field came first. So I was kind of educated from within, and then I sought formal education to support and to, I guess, verify and fact check the things that I was, validating internally and observing internally. I went back to school to learn. I became a medical pranic healer essentially after my contact experience in 2013. And what led me to the contact experiences was hours and hours of meditation, sometimes up to 9 hours of meditation, where I would just sit and unpack and really explore my own mind. And that's really where I learned about how we function, psychologically, from my own perception. And then later on went back to school to learn. So I'll backtrack. After the contact experiences, these psychic abilities became available to me. And many years later, when I went through hypnotherapy, I began to download information about holographic DNA and about the connection between DNA, this genetic blueprint, and our spiritual, our ascension experiences and multidimensional experiences, and how those memories are programmed in our DNA bioelectrically. So I was shown all this information about that, and I went back to school to study that, and I wanted to learn. Are we just making this stuff up? Is there some truth to it? And yeah, it was exciting to be supported by the science and research and so much amazing information from ancient wisdom schools, as well as our modern sciences, which I think are catching up now.
That's a shock.
It was a wonderful experience, yeah.
Well, I'm glad. And one of the things you mentioned right off the bat that kind of piqued my interest is when you said holographic DNA. Is that referring to what they call the junk DNA or the inactive DNA that's in us?
Right. Yes, it is. Essentially, if you understand the nature of the construct of this reality, which you and I experience at the very quantum level, every cell, every molecule, every system of energy is essentially toroidal in its form, in its procession of energy, and that creates fields. We're basically swimming in a field of infinite potential. And so the holographic nature of this universe is actually one of the most important things it's a foundation of understanding that should be underneath everything, really. Your meditation, as much as your ET contact, as much as your healing, And so what I discovered was that not only is this system holographic, but essentially our bodies being a holographic projection that project from DNA being the blueprint from which everything is gathered, information is expressed. And so the depth of the amount of information that we pull from DNA is not just genetic makeup. It's not just the protein writing system, which only takes up 2% of DNA, but rather, even the co-creation of life experiences is programmed and memorized in our DNA. It's passed down through generations, and it really defines people's lives. It defines their paths. It defines the influences that will catapult them into powerful life experiences, traumatic experiences. So all of this is in the holographic DNA system. And what I more recently found out with my work over the past 10 years is essentially that in our DNA, we also pass down psychic capabilities, our intuitive capacities. And we kind of refer back to ancient shamans and many of the ancient mystery schools who talked about how the connection with the ancestors was something that was passed down through the blood. It was passed down through the DNA. That is very true. And so there's really an entire structure to this, what we call junk DNA. And someone that has done magnificent work to map out this element from the biological and also philosophical perspective is Michael Levin, who talks about the bioelectrical memory system of the morphogenetic field. And how I found him was that I was shown the system in my hypnotherapy session. And then I researched, looking everywhere, trying to find some information about that. And he was the one that came up because he was a groundbreaking biologist that had discovered the field that is actually reading the morphogenetic field, the instruction manual of how we come into form. So anyway, it's just magnificent, and our human bodies are so divine and complex. So yeah, it's very interesting.
It is interesting, and I've often wondered, and you may be able to answer this with your background, is I did the test, the DNA test, and my parents did through Ancestry.com. And they give you a nice little Venn diagram that says this is your father's DNA, this is your mom's DNA. But then there was a section of DNA that didn't belong to either parent.
Mm.
And so is that what they call, the dormant DNA from ancestors? Or is it like star DNA that showing up this way and they don't know how to map it, so they just say, okay, it looks like it's closest to this region, so we'll put it over here?
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful thing that you brought that up, because something that has been really coming up for us in the study of biology is how far back the human race actually goes. And I think that we're pretty young in understanding our genetic makeup. We're very young in understanding the origin of life and the origin of races and our historic evolutionary progression. How did we come to be the races that we are today? Even historically, there is a major gap in the evolutionary history that we have. And this has been pushed a lot by evolutionary scientists and people that push that concept, maybe specifically out of Africa theory and also the Big Bang theory. But I believe that a lot of that will be rewritten, and we'll begin to understand that our ancestry goes far, way beyond that. So in a sense, you're right. It's kind of like the unknown aspect of your DNA that hasn't been sequenced, that hasn't been matched or mapped. I do think that our sciences, with the advancement of AI and robotics now, I think that a lot of DNA sequencing is going to really progress in the coming years, to the point where it will create an entire bioelectrical signatures of genetic information, which is different. It's not right now we're looking at, what is available to us through our genes and through the races that we have. But when we look at bioelectrical signatures, it's also going to help us understand somewhat timelines, where we originated from, where we come from, how we are progressing through these different civilizations through history. So I think that a lot of people have of course, starseed memory, I think it's another layer of DNA that's in the holographic system, memory system, and I think our sciences are too young to get there, because we're still figuring out our human DNA. But people that know my work know that I am not a big fan of those genetic sequencing companies because of what they have done historically with our genetic data. They have, made you pay basically, $100 something to donate your DNA, which is super, super important. And it's the map of you, who you are and how you function, and that data has been sold to many of these corporations that have been utilizing that to build the models of artificial intelligence, which will be used now for the future medicine. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens, but yeah, it's a good comment.
Well, and I'm also curious because we're learning as we're evolving, so to speak, or awakening, whatever term you want to use. I have had memories where I'm like laying on, I guess you could call it a holographic med bed if you want to make it easier. But the sequence that's in there, I've tweaked it and changed it. So therefore, does that mean when that sequence is inserted in and I'm me, the DNA that I gave, say, to like Ancestry or that somebody else has through other means is no longer valid because I have altered my genetic code?
Not exactly. To alter genetic code, you know, you it's not really about altering genetic code, and the kind of alterations that you're talking about are epigenetic, which is like the superficial level of DNA, of the information that is being input. So your genetic code is one base code, never changes for your whole life. What does change is the epigenetic of it, the influence of that. So all of your environment, your emotions, all that stuff, which is, it's basically writing the upper layer of your DNA. Okay, and so the sublayer, the foundation of your DNA is everything that makes up Michael and his ancestry and the traits, that the strongest traits that he carries. But if you deprogram and you tweak, like you mentioned, you change some of that information, it's going to change that superficial layer. But as you reinforce, so how you change those kinds of markers is through the alchemical process, which is a bioelectrical process of emotional transmutation. Okay, so that's really how you do it. So how you tweak something. So you change one thought form that you're passing down for many generations, and you transmute that to another thought form that is on a different frequency. That bioelectrical charge, which is infused with new emotions, new thoughts, new belief systems, it will rewrite that bioelectrical system of your DNA, and that's epigenetic. So that will change eventually as you continue to reinforce that, creating new neural pathways. Everything changes. The fascia, bioelectrically, how you are being conductive and moving life force through your body, and also how you are. How the organs and the muscle systems are responding to those emotional changes. That's where you start to really change at an epigenetic level a lot of things about you, and it can influence many aspects of your life. So, all our DNA is changeable, and within the field, we can we can change and do a lot. The core blueprint of who you are and what you are, it stays the same during this lifetime. But as you progress and the more work you do deprogramming belief systems, essentially what you carry on bioelectrically will change. And that's how people can heal themselves for illnesses. They can end, generational cancers, really, really, really tough things that they're passing down through generations.
That's amazing. And as we're talking about the bioelectric field and tapping into it, I can't help but think about like I've had situations to where I don't know why I did it, but I did like put an electric circuit together in a classroom setting where it was live and I could feel the current go through and had no side effects. It's not like I had to go to the hospital, but I
Hmm.
could feel it and I was fine. Is some people able to tap and utilize like electricity differently? And so that's why some people, are like, I'm gonna throw an example out, and I'm not. This is my guess, but like Danny and Brinkley, struck by lightning several times, still walking the planet.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Other people struck by lightning, they're on the ground. So is there somehow we're tapping the bioelectrical field differently that's
Hmm.
keeping us safe?
That's an amazing question. So the bioelectricity that the body produces, it's different than AC, electricity, or electricity from, what's it called? Struck by lightning, for example. Um, what the kind of bioelectricity that we're really talking about is when we produce and we can move life force. You see, we are pure life force. And the way life force moves through the body is through the main energy centers, which we know as chakras. So these chakra systems are producing electricity. What creates an output of electricity is emotions, actually. That's why our emotions are so important. So this frequency is a lot more delicate. It's a lot more etheric. It's a lot more. It's a different kind of creative potential, but it creates a ripple effect in everything, in the subtle realms of your relationships. It creates a magnetic field in terms of who you're attracting, the kind of experiences you're going to have. So it's a extremely powerful creative potential. But when we talk about electricity from the earth, that's a whole different kind of electricity. Now, um, those kinds of events, like for example, Danny and Brinkley being struck by lightning, those kinds of events, it depends, and it's really, really mostly based on his contractual agreements for the experience. Usually, people that are struck by lightning have very deep contractual agreements with the earth. They have very deep contractual agreements to experience these near-death experiences, to have things activated in them for their purpose and their mission. So these kinds of near-death things are always they're like bridges between the physical and the non-physical world. They have a different quality to them, a different design, and that's very embedded in the DNA of the person, because these are agreements that are made even before they are born, and maybe even generationally. um, you know so yeah, I think the relationship that we have with the natural world, with nature, with earth, it's a totally, we create contractual agreement to the experiences that we need to learn. But this kind of life force that we're talking about, this creative potential that we're creating, it will define the kind of experiences that we have. So, yeah, it depends on contractual agreements, what we're destined to experience for our growth and our evolution.
Yeah. I also wonder sometimes if it's not something in the DNA because I can go to like a light switch and I can see a blue spark go into my finger, and we have a piezoelectric clicker,
Hmm.
and I can put it anywhere on the body and click it, and the spark, I can feel it, but it's not like where I see a lot of people go, oh, and they jerk their hand or jerk their leg away. I'm like, yeah, I felt it. And so I wonder sometimes if something in the DNA is like absorbing the electricity differently, and that's why I can, have the experiences I have. But I will say I've never wanted to test the effects. Like, I'm not going to go up to a live wire on the ground somewhere and go, yeah, I can handle that and pick it up. No, it's like, I don't
Right.
have to draw to that.
Right. Well, yeah, sorry. And let me get to the second part of your question, which is perfect for this follow up that you're bringing up. Exactly. Is that when we are super highly conductive, how do we become highly conductive? It's based on our vibrational frequency. Again, how you're moving life force through the body. So the more you move life force through the body, yes, you move energy, including electric energy, in a you affect it. You affect it. Because a lot of experiencers, they have expanded magnetic fields, especially after they have contact experiences. They can affect the field around them. And a lot of them, including, I'm sure you've had these experiences of light bulbs flickering or turning off. I mean, after my experience, for example, for almost 3 months, because first of all, I couldn't leave my house, but when I did, because the level of vision that I had was it was just, my body would hurt. I could hear and feel people's thoughts. It was just excruciating sensitivity for me at the time, because I didn't understand it yet. It doesn't have to be excruciating for everyone. And it's not a scary experience. But when I went to, I could hear my neighbors like 4 houses down from my house. I could hear them talking. That's how sensitive I was. And when I would drive, the lights on the street would all turn off after I would pass them. They would just turn off, 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 and then they'd turn on. They would flicker. Things like this. I would touch computer systems. Sometimes they would overheat and just burn out on me. So just like you have a different level because you're developing your range of vision. And remember that, the human spectrum of light, it's a very limited rainbow spectrum of color that we see. And so when you open and activate your faculties already, you're expanding your vision, which means you can see more things. You might see gamma, you might see other ultraviolet things, where you can see the etheric realms more openly. So these are the realms of energy. And so you literally master energy. You are connecting with energy, manipulating energy even. You can move things and you can affect everything around you. So this is part of those activated faculties. Yeah.
That's amazing. And it brings a question to mind because we're talking about seeing different wavelengths and everything. Is in my house, when I would get home, I always would have the lights off because, I'm by myself, so I don't need a light on, to say, hey, I'm home. I know where everything is.
Yeah.
But what would be interesting is I would go and I'd look in the living room and it'd be pitch black. But I would notice when I would almost like center myself, if that makes sense, I could
Mm-hmm.
open my eyes and then I would see like little wave lines where the furniture was, where the walls were, where openings were. There would be like a void in the lines, and so I knew the path. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I called it nocturnal vision
Yeah.
because I was able to maneuver through the dark. And I'm wondering if that's what you're talking about, is tapping into that field, and I was able to see it, but I haven't mastered it because I can go to other places and I'll be like, doesn't matter how zen I get, I can't tap into that again.
Interesting. Absolutely. Well, when your vibrational frequency is high enough where you're connected to the quantum field, everything is a field and everything is something that you can interact with. So I experienced the exact same thing as you, and I have many experiencers in my group and also students that experience that. So, which leads us to understand that under the right conditions, under the right training and working in your energetic body, you can have night nocturnal vision. I like cats, for example. Cats have this very interesting nocturnal vision, and you know you can sense that they see things in the empty space that you might not be paying attention to. So, for example, when I first activated my abilities, I had that same thing where I would be able to see in the pitch dark of night. And I had a cat back then that would look in some direction, and I would be able to see the shadows that she was connecting to. So I think that the beauty of the human is that we think we live in this one dimensional world where everything is just physical. What's happening right now as we're entering into period 9 is that we are becoming more multidimensional, and our DNA is activating in a way that, because of the vibrational frequency of this universe that is moving faster, the veil is thinning, which means that we can expand the spectrum of visibility that we have, which also means we can affect matter and energy in more masterful ways. So, yeah, it's just a matter of learning how to do that.
And it's interesting you bring that up because I was talking with a guest last night on another show of mine that she was mentioning like the Schumann resonance is off the charts
Yeah,
because the new Earth is entering on top of our current Earth. So the energy is sparking and going out crazy. And I said, they told us in the future the veil will become so thin we'll be able to see our loved ones who are on the other side.
yeah.
And I couldn't help, and I asked her, and she kind of agreed that yeah, you were going to be able to go and physically be in space with our loved ones where they are, because the veil is basically going to disappear as they merge. Is that your feeling, or do you have a different take on what's going on?
Well, similar in absolutely in some ways. First of all, I don't believe that a new Earth is just emerging from here. I think that you see, each individual is projecting and co-creating the reality that we're experiencing together. So I feel that the person that begins to change their frequency, change their programming, activate their abilities, they're going to experience a completely different timeline than a person that is not. So I do feel that we are sharing a space with that, and that's just the nature of this dualistic environment in which, this incarnation is dualistic in a third dimensional realm. And it's dualistic for a reason. We have to learn how to transcend our limitations, the belief limitations that we have. But in addition to that, the planet Earth is deeply, deeply connected to the movement of the sun, okay? Because our planet Earth is a conscious organism, it's a living being. Every single planet in the solar system is a living organism of consciousness. And the sun, essentially, the sun is not what we think it is. We think it's a hot ball of light that's just, emitting and a gravitational pull, but it's actually a portal that also functions like an antenna. And that antenna is picking up the frequencies of this ascension. The entire universe is spiraling in an ascending motion. So ascension is inevitable. It's every single molecule in this universe is ascending, whether you like it or not. It just matters whether you come into resonance with that ascension. And the more you do come into resonance, the less suffering and the less difficult that transition is going to be for all of humanity. So the less resistance that every organism is in to that constant ebb and flow of this moving universe, this is where we experience more bliss, more joy, more peace. Um, and with that comes the activation of higher faculties. Again, because the veil is thinning, what does that mean? You have to thin your veil, and you also have to look beyond the veil. And that requires certain preparation. Our core values need to change to be in harmonic order. They need to change to be aligned with the laws of the universe. This is the only way to, as this human body, progress through these massive changes that are happening. And what changes? The sun. Whenever you start entering into a higher octave, when the universe goes into a higher octave, the suns of those solar systems are always going to activate tremendously. And we have an uptick, very clear uptick in solar activity in the past, maybe it most powerful has been in the past 4 years. I mean, we've had M class, we've had crazy solar activity. Every single time that happens, it's also a symphony of energy movement with the moon, with the planetary alignments, and we are very affected by that. The heavier you are, the more you can't move your energy, the more you're going to feel these changes. And so, the invitation is that you become more light. The more light you become, the less you attach to the physical form, to concepts, to limiting beliefs, the more you flow with this evolutionary system. There is also an activation of DNA that is happening, extremely powerful to understand. And this goes really deep in understanding the physics of the sun and our plasma. We exist because of the sun. It's from the sun that we get our DNA, our blood, our makeup. The morphogenetic design of our human bodies is specifically designed after the geometric construct of the sun. And that means that the gateway for evolution for each human is through the heart. When the human is able to expand and utilize the heart in order to experience coherence, which means connection with everything, that is when we come into harmonic order and we activate higher faculties, intuition, telepathy, self-healing, which is essential that we learn how to heal ourselves. We can telekinesis. I mean, there's many kind of activities that we need to start training as a human race right now. And so our DNA is changing to accommodate that. And the changes of DNA in the plasma, they are, every time there's major solar activity, certain humans are going to be experiencing it gradually, more and more. So this is kind of how I see what is happening, but it's a very special time.
And it is, and you actually brought up two questions that I hadn't thought about, and I'll give them both to you, and you can answer them as you see fit, if you can answer them. First one is, I remember reading about some doctors who were doing heart surgery on a patient, and when they moved the heart, they found violet flame behind the heart. So
Wow.
is that like our connection to the sun is through that violet flame? And the second question I had that came up is, as we're talking about the sun, giving us messages and helping us ascend and everything, the butterfly that recently appeared on the sun that was huge. Was that like the message to say to everybody, hey, you've gone from the caterpillar, now we're becoming the butterfly stage?
Absolutely. I mean, well, the thing is this: we are creatures of symbols because the language that we speak is frequency. So whenever there's a frequency, there's a message behind that. So, the form of the butterfly has very profound ancestral roots in us. It has ancestral memory, which is it's a basis of morphogenesis. So how beautiful that the sun was able to send that to us. And the sun has millions of messages, but those that can pick that up are probably very few. Very few are deeply connected to the sun, pay attention. I was part of a race one time of solar people. We used to, in a sense, not worship the sun, but we would rise with the sun and we would communicate. We would hold up and create this triangular vortex system through the pineal gland, and we would receive images through the sun. And the human race was evolved by the sun in that way. I think that a lot of the human races on our planet Earth have adopted that kind of mentality. The Mayans, the Egyptians. I mean, many solar civilizations we've had on this Earth. That being said, there are many messages. There's another element of message that is coming right now with 3i Atlas, for example, this comet that's coming by, which is, it's completely changing. You see, imagine the solar system like a living organism. Your human body is not going to have a random object moving around it randomly. Neither is nature. Everything is working exactly as it needs to be, and it's the same for the universe. So when we have something entering into the solar system, there's massive transformations, vibrational frequencies that are changing on the planet Earth. And I think it's an invitation for major transformation for humanity. We, in 2017 in my hypnotherapy, I was shown that certain a wave of hybrid children with the name of Reconnaissance, from a craft named Reconnaissance, were going to be seeding back on Earth. And it was going to happen after Pluto goes direct. And how I said it was the Plutonians are coming, the Plutos are coming, because it is a wave of consciousness that is going to hit the planet Earth that will completely wipe us into another level of consciousness. You know, so we got to pay attention to the children because their DNA is coded by the sun, is elevated. And it's also going to be a new science to observe in our solar charts what kind of activity the sun was having on the day of your birth. That's going to tell you a lot about your mission. It's going to tell you about the work that you're doing here, because the communication with the sun will become stronger than ever before. What was your other question, Michael? I'm sorry. Now I forgot about the other.
About the violet flame behind the heart.
Yeah, and I really want to answer that one, because the violet flame, this is one of the most. So the violet flame is essentially what the field is made up of. Okay, every single molecule, and this was discovered by the Heart Math Institute, has an element of violet light within it. Every cell, every molecule, every atom in this universe, from the space to the earth, has this violet light. And so it is the field in which we connect to. So there are many ancient practices in Taoist, in Chinese medicine, in Qigong practices where they cultivate life force specifically to cultivate the ability to access violet light through the heart and through the pineal gland. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, they found it in the heart. I don't know how they might have discovered that. Was it in the cellular structure of the heart, or how did they discover that?
From what I remember reading is they were moving the heart to check something, and then they noticed this violet flame in the body, and so they were like, what is this? They didn't know what it was, and they were just they just said, we saw this violet flame here, and it's like, I guess they put the heart back and did what they needed to do, and was like, well, right up we saw it, but they never really said what it was for or what it was.
Okay,
And
yeah.
it made me start to think too, is we talk about the divine spark that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and we can make it go bright or we can make it go dim. But I wondered, if you're, say you're doing a surgery on your heart for something, if somebody wanted to see it and douse it, would that cause you, major harm, maybe cease to exist?
No, yeah,
Or,
no
you
way.
know,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what would happen if it was doused? Because we don't even know how it started.
Exactly. These are intangible fields. These are etheric fields. And to create an energy system that would produce a violet light on that level that was visible, which has been shown. I have an entire book on research on Tibetan monks that have been put through all kinds of little experiments to figure out what they do bioelectrically when they meditate. And they found many times in the energetic field of the monks would be an entire layer of violet light around their body. Okay, and at the cellular level in the brain, the graphs, the brain scan graphs, were able to capture these gamma rays that would produce violet light, and that was a product of the amount of gray matter that they were growing in the brain. So anyway, the violet light as a frequency is something that we produce the more conductive we become. How you become conductive, again, cleaning the energy field. And we are a toroidal energy system, and so is the heart, by the way. The heart is a vortex, which takes me to my whole other concept, that the toroidal system of the body and the heart, everything is fractal. The more it begins to spin, we become centripetal. The more bioelectrical we become, more conductive, we have access to the violet light. Not only do we begin to see the violet light in meditation, a lot of my students see this entire field up here, violet. You have to continue to develop that. In Taoist practices, we practice the universal cycling of life in the body, where we transmute energy from the spine up into the pineal gland and back down with the tongue to the roof of the mouth, because this circular energy system is the conductivity channel of life force. And so the more you open up the blocks from the chakras, which are emotional and thought form blocks, this is how you can access that. So this person, whoever had the violet light in the heart, I mean, absolutely was working with, had some knowledge, at least somewhere, where he understood how to move energy in a way to produce from the heart, because the heart is a vortex again. And so that's a pretty interesting article that you read. I would love to read that sometime and learn from it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was like the 80s, so I doubt I could put my hands
Okay.
on it anytime soon. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But sorry, to answer your question, it can never be eliminated. Because again, in order to produce that level of conductivity, it's a structural energy system that is built over time. So you can never break that down, just like your existence, the value of your existence. You cannot erase that. You can't tweak that. It is just embedded in the layers of the universe, the intention of the energy around you. I mean, it goes really deep. Yeah.
that's really cool to know, and actually, it gives a lot of peace of mind too.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, the body being a toroidal field, and I studied a little bit with Nassim Harriman, who talks about there being a black hole in every person, and we're like a universe within a universe.
Mm, yeah.
So if we are black holes, so to speak, that's, as science tells us, sucks energy in. How, is the toroidal field coming from that black hole, or are those like two different forces that are making us what we are?
Actually, we contain both white and black hole energy and structure in our biology, in our etheric biology. Okay, so we're made up of black and white holes. Essentially, every single one of the chakras, depending on how they're spinning, the direction in which they're spinning. Masculine energy is the giving energy, it's the depletion energy, extraction. Feminine is the receiving energy. Okay, so you can say the feminine would be the white hole and the black hole would be the masculine. So we actually have those within our body. Our chakras are those systems of energy. Now, the energy you put out more will define whether you are the one that is, being a parasitic system where you are just, taking everything from outside and you become a black hole, or you are a white hole, which you then express and you co create in this universe. There's not really any right or wrong with either of those states of being, but one of them will be a stronger contrasting experiences. You will experience more within the construct of contrast, and so yeah, so it's a choice what you want to experience. I also see that this entire solar system, this universe, is essentially in a black hole, actually. And it's interesting because I also see that there is an Earth that exists in the white hole universe, and we also exist there. A parallel aspect of ourself is living there. So yeah, and I think that well, I'll stop there, and you can tell me where you want to take it because there's so much I could say, but let's continue. Yeah.
Well, you also, you have me thinking, we're talking about, we're trying to balance everything. Everybody needs to be in balance. That seems to be the key word right now.
Mm.
And I know from William Henry and his studies, he talks about the rainbow body that the monks learned, and they could disappear if they wanted to and reappear when they reach that state. And so I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is that state where they're not a taker, they're not a giver, the white and black hole are in perfect unison, and that's what allows that person to be able to do that, is they're walking like the perfect line, so to speak.
Yeah, so that perfect line conceptually would be something called the 0 point, which is the center point of non-duality. It's the point of non-judgmental observation. And that's what I teach in my energy school, is how do we embody the 0 point. It's exactly what we're talking about. So when you balance and you harmonize, let's say all the black hole, white hole energy that makes up your entire system, you don't eliminate any one or the other. You bring them all into harmonic order. Now you enter into something called the 0 point. And that is reflected in the universe. The more that natural systems are in harmony, when we're human race is in harmony with nature, the human life flourishes. Each human flourishes, we come into a more advanced civilization. And that's the direction which I'm hoping the humanity will take. And so in this concept of the rainbow body, for example, that's exactly what it is. Every single one of these chakras, you can say it's a color of the rainbow because it's based on frequencies. And this beautiful body, it's a self-organizing system of energy. So it has an intelligence that most people are just jumbled up colors of light. We're just a mess because we haven't learned how to be aware of our bodies. Our chakras are toroidal fields. Every single chakra is a toroidal field. Every chakra is connected with a dimensional plane, and we can expand and contract that. In fact, we expand and contract it based on the kind of emotions and thoughts that we're running in the back end in the subconscious mind. So it's a very beautiful, subtle, and very complex energy system that when you sit in meditation, you start to observe, you begin to really understand. If you can sit in meditation and you can't imagine a sphere or a bubble around your entire body, that's where you start to see where your energy has been leaking from, where you're completely asleep, you're completely unaware. Mostly people can't visualize in the back of their body, So and the back of the body represents the feminine. The front of the body is the masculine. So usually the feminine being our intuitive aspect of humanity, the divine, this divine connection, most humanity is disconnected from that. So the invitation is that the more we connect with the divine, the exercise the connection to the divine through our coming into harmony, basically, which is the 0 point, we activate higher faculties, intuition, connection, healing, and we're able to come into a more productive co-creative cycle. And we also, in addition to, in the process of coming into this balance, as you mentioned, we're breaking something called karmic contracts. We create agreements for the experiences that we're making. And these are not just everyday relationships. Your ancestors, every choice that they have made has literally called forth your soul into the incarnation of the life that you're having. So the more that you break contractual agreements on a daily basis, this is how you start to deprogram that ancestral influence. And like we were mentioning, epigenetically, you're rewriting the code of the frequency that you're anchoring into the planet. So the earth starts to heal and timelines start to change. So the fact that we create the reality, that level of power is something that we're going to be experiencing more because time is speeding up and things are becoming manifested more instantaneously. So our thoughts, our emotions, our intentions are rapidly creating, instantaneously creating. So we need to have more responsibility of what we're doing. Now, in the process of cleaning contracts, I've experienced myself that a lot of humans have a hard time with that level of peace. We're not very comfortable with peace because it's really exciting to have drama in life. You want to have all kinds, you don't realize how addicted you are to stress and problems. So for the average person, they find it very struggling to be in a state of harmony and peace. And so the invitation is to learn how to gently regulate the nervous system and to feed from the divine infinite, which is going to be a different level of experience. And the breaking of these contracts, basically you are in harmony with nature. So it's a different kind of experience that one has. And indeed, the body can dissolve. You literally can leave the body. You die essentially because all of your contractual agreements in this lifetime have been completed or met. And that's not, when I say completed, doesn't mean like you did a mission, you served a million. It means that you were able to come into harmonic order, and you can do that instantaneously if you understand what you're doing and why, and if you are truly in agreement with that. So, yeah, as you can see, these ancient things have been available. This wisdom has been available to us, but it's almost like now we're just beginning to understand how to truly implement that into our life experience.
That's true, and I'm curious as we're talking about like the chakras, and you keep pointing to the ones in the body. Do you interact with and focus on the spiritual chakras? And I think now the count I think is around like 250 chakras around the body at one time, and I'm like, how are they counting these and where are they getting this information from? But it's like, it's almost like in a way they're overwhelming the mind, and it's like you sit there and you go, I'm struggling to get these body in alignment. Now you're telling me there's like over 200 more that I got to get in alignment with. What?
It's actually not that complicated. Why? Because you see, the chakra simply means vortex. So spinning wheel, but that's not really an accurate depiction of what chakras actually look like. Chakras are like toroidal energy systems. So, vortex is here, vortex here, and it's a toroidal energy system that runs. And it creates a spherical energy structure. What is a chakra? Every cell of your body really is a chakra. Okay, you have millions of chakras in the body, and they're in ancient Hindu tradition. These were called nadis. They're energy points. We have thousands, and in Taoist energy structure, we have the meridian lines in the acupuncture map of the body. So all of these energy systems, they become blocked when we resist belief systems or we have emotions, unresolved traumas. It blocks the energy. Quite simply, but also challenging, we want to release that. First, we want to understand, acknowledge, identify where it is, acknowledge it, and release it, and move the energy there, which means that instead of resisting, you allow yourself to sit with that emotion, and that's where it starts to open up. So that's how you move the energy. And there's many ways to work with life force. One is psychological, emotional. This is what I do in my DNA reprogramming sessions with clients, is that we go deep into the shadow work of the root of those emotions. Emotions, they are layered into the bioelectrical system. And this layering system, when you begin to observe that, it shows you a map on how you became traumatized and how you continue to reinforce that trauma your entire life. That doesn't go away. That's in your field forever. So there isn't a single experience that you've had in your life that is not somehow held within your energy system of your body. So these are things that we have to become aware of and lovingly, compassionately move through them. This is why people become ill and sick. We have so much sickness in the world. That there is an absolute, every illness has a somatic root, and that somatic root has to be addressed. So to make things short, we can learn how to balance our chakra system. I teach something called GPAC. Very simple. Grounding, which means that you imagine a bodysuit connecting down to the center of the earth, and you anchor yourself to the center of the earth every moment of your day. Imagine if you were busy at work, but you always in the back of your mind kept reminding yourself that you are fully in this body, you are fully in the present moment. It's going to force you to be present with yourself. And that is number one in energy mastery. Two, the P, which means protection, and that's basically your auric body, your energy body. You're aware of your energy body and you know how to own your space. So a lot of people, they get lost in events, outside events, whatever's happening in the world outside. All their energy is depleted. Of course, we're going to end up sick and confused and, angry. But the regathering of our energy, calling it back into the body, that really allows us to redirect the energy inwardly. And that's where we can start to cultivate and build energy, this bioelectricity in the body. Aligning, which is working with the chakras, we can control and demand, and not demand necessarily, but we can control the chakras into balance. So literally balance your root, your sacral, solar, expanding the heart, the throat, the third eye, just a little bit, so that we can begin to move the energy in a way that is aligned with this natural order, with love, with coherence, with connection, with intuitive capacities. And finally, the C, which represents co-creation, which is your crown. Your crown is the portal to the higher self. And the higher self, when we're disconnected from the crown, we're basically just surviving. We're living in survival. So the actual embodiment of the higher self means that we activate the crown and we see life and ourselves through the vision of the crown. So this is a really simple thing that you can learn to do, and it's level mastery of your energy system. And if you can remember to do that every day, more and more you are realigning all your chakras.
And, that leads me to an interesting question as the world is what it is today.
Yeah.
We're talking about able to protect ourselves with energy and learning the energy flow and everything. And I start to think about we're coming into an age of using energy weapons, so to speak.
Yeah.
If we're able to, like, hypothetically be like Zen state, able to manipulate and flow the energy in balance, and somebody was to say use one on us, would we be able to transmute and nullify it and therefore be like almost immune to it, or would it still have an effect?
Yeah, so we absolutely can. And as an experiencer of military abductions, I can attest very clearly to being able to redirect those kinds of attacks. They are psychological attacks, vibrational frequency attacks, and many other kinds that try to intimidate and destroy your foundation of connection to the light. There's a technique called body of glass, which is essentially where you dematerialize your body to see yourself as a light rather than just the physical body. This is one of the most powerful ancient techniques for cloaking, energy cloaking that we have. But, this is something taught by shamans. Not many people know. And there's many other techniques that when you have your bubble around you, and you own your space, it becomes a mirror, and everything that comes towards you is bouncing off. But it requires a lot of awareness. And first of all, you have to be aware that you're even being attacked. A lot of people slip into victim mentality, and then they have no idea how to get out of that because they're stuck in that. So we have to break immediately from victim mentality and begin to come into the awareness of feeling the discomfort first. Because a lot of people don't want to feel. They just want to hide or numb out. And that is one of the biggest psychological operations that have been done in history, is to intimidate and destruct the human spirit with the manipulation of sexual energy, fear, manipulation, pharmaceuticals, your weakening of your DNA with food, stress, anxiety. That's how you weaken the soul. And so we kind of have to be very aware and mindful and be very diligent to select our awareness every moment. And from there, use these amazing tools that we can use to cloak ourselves from that. Now, this cloaking technique is not meant to be used 24/7. It's only for when you need to just conceal from danger or something that doesn't have your best interest temporarily. It's very important to learn how to master your energy and anchor yourself fully in the body. So that's especially for now.
And talking about being mindful, we're actually a couple minutes over the hour.
Sorry.
Do you have time to answer a few more questions, or do you need to run?
I can answer a couple more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions I have that ties back to you talking about, being the solar being at one point. I have noticed I always was able to look up at the sun even during the eclipses and had no effects by the sun. But now at certain times I look up to the sun and it's like my eyes can't see. It's like blinding to me, and I'm wondering, is it because the sun's frequency has gone up and we just haven't adjusted yet to it, or why would all of a suddenly the sun be too bright?
Well, I definitely think that there is a lot of, there's a lot of things going on actually. There's a lot of also agendas, unfortunately, to block out the frequencies of the sun affecting humanity. Uh, Weather engineering is one of them. It's one of the ways that they block the rays of the sun. Rays of the sun are information, again. So we need that information. When the human is disconnected from their higher self, it's just the same. When you're disconnected from the sun for a long time, you can't access that information. So weather modification, where they're putting aluminum and all kinds of other chemicals there that block those rays from hitting, you know, that's one thing that weakens the human's connection to the sun. So it can have any kind of biological effect over time, like you're having, weakening it. It's never really a good idea to look at the sun just in general directly. There are certain times of day that we can look at the sun really easily and receive information. Sunrise and sunset are those windows of time biologically, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which I don't have time to go into today. But we have an entire spiritual organic clock that our entire body, even our eyes, the pineal gland becomes more receptive to the information that we're receiving from the sun. And so when you look at the sun at sunset or sunrise, you can pick up that life force and you can heal your kidneys, you can heal your liver, you can heal your stomach, you can heal your body. So, unfortunately, because of the chemicals in the air, because of the chemicals in our food, chemicals in pharmaceuticals, our systems are becoming more weakened to these natural systems of information. So we have to detox in a way to build that strength again. And if not chemically, we need to do it spiritually, right? Clean the energy body so that we can connect with the sun, basically.
That makes sense. And the next question I have for you deals with the moon, and I'm not sure where your stance on what the moon is, but I've come across where there was life with no moon, and I've noticed like for the past 2 days, I couldn't see the moon anywhere in the clear sky. But today I was like, oh, the moon's back. And so to me, I wonder, is it artificial, and why is it here now? Did they bring it? Does it have a negative impact on us? Like, is that one of their manipulations to control? Or what purpose does the moon actually serve?
So the moon has a very important role energetically in maintaining balance in the ecostructure of energy of the human race. The moon manages the waters of the planet. It's very important to understand that. The waters are the oceans, all the bodies of water, and they are you, because we are mostly water. We're 68 to 90% water. When you're a baby, you're basically mostly water. And so it really affects everything. Being a bioelectrical organism of light, that effect of the movement in this 30-day cycles of the sun are essential to moving and preparing for every next octave of frequency that we're experiencing collectively. Now, this system, which is a natural system, natural, I mean, everything is working in harmonic order. The moon must exist for this world because that's how this energy system is balanced. Why? Because our system is dualistic. So we need the moon to maintain some kind of harmonic order in the ecosystem of the planet. It can be weaponized, and it has been weaponized. There have been many nefarious systems that have utilized, not only in the Gregorian calendar, but have also manipulated our time structure in order to distort organic, natural order. Our calendar system is upside down in the Gregorian calendar. If we were to come more into harmonic order with natural systems, our new year would be a completely different time, and that we would have 13 months of the year, many other things. Okay, and that's very important because it changes the ability for the human to evolve. You can look at the woman with her menstrual cycle; it's adapted to that. For the women are the vessels that connect to the divine, and they have always been used to be the seers and the intuitive minds of the human race. But what's happened over time is it's become mechanistic, and it's been turned from this 13 to 12 month calendar where it's cut short that connection to the divine. The 13th body is severed. What's the 13th body? It's the connection to the source. So, there's very deep reasons for that. But I think that even though those things have happened, we as a human race right now, we can transcend the negative influences of that because we have to, and we should, and we can. And there's really nothing that limits our ability to connect to our source, no matter what they try to do. And I think that's one of the invitations that we're learning here, incarnating on the planet. So yes, that's how I see it. But I do believe that there is life on the moon. I do believe every single planet in this system has life, actually, that we can't see. Just we will as we expand our vision, and it'll become more clear the role of the planet and the human race in the coming years.
Yeah, I agree, and I still think the best way it was ever said was the movie Contact, where he
Yeah,
delivers that line of, if God created this universe and we're the only life on it, that's an awful lot of wasted space out there. So I'm like, that sums it up. It's like, if we're all that there is, why build this vast space for us? Whereas if there are others out there, it makes sense why there would be the vast.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I would love to keep talking with you more, but your time is valuable, and I know, and I appreciate you, and we'll definitely have to get you back on because I feel like each time we talk, we get to go to a different layer, a different path, and so thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Michael, for the invitation. It's always a pleasure. I love your level of consciousness, and you are super, just so tapped in. And it's a joy to converse with you about these things. So thank you. I hope to be back soon.
Yes, and before I sign off and let you go,
Yeah.
there is one thing that I've been starting to do really with finding out that I'm apparently in this cycle of gratitude.
Uh-huh.
And so I figured it out after I started doing something. And what it is my heart and my show to you. Thank you for what you're doing for humanity.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I receive it and I send it back tenfold, Michael. Yeah, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that's watching this. And do stay tuned and follow, like, and subscribe because you never know when Geraldine's going to pop back up. We'll have another one of these great conversations.
Much love.
And so, with that, I'm going to say goodnight, everyone.